evaluation. So that's what I'm going to talk about. But before I do my presentation, a little bit of my background, right? So I was born and raised in Ghana, and I did my first degree in psychology in the University of Ghana, right? So in 2006, I got the opportunity to go to Ohio University to do my master's in development studies. And then I think around 2008, I went to West Virginia University to do my PhD in education. And then immediately after that, I got the opportunity to go to the Chicago School, and I was the methodology expert for almost 10 years. And after that, I realized that maybe I have to set up my own consultancy firm. So I was able to set it up. I think it's getting closer to 2 years. So I'm now the founder and also the methodology expert at the Center for Research Method Consulting. So this is a brief background about myself. So I really have a passion of simplifying research methods, especially qualitative research and program evaluation, action research, mixed method research. And what I do is to share my resources online so that everybody can get access to my resources and learn from all the information that they need to know about research. So what is my work currently? So what I do is I provide consultation to clients. So if they are doing their research, they don't, and they need help with the methodology, they contact me and then I provide support. And also, I also organize webinars and also workshops for clients to just help them to gain the needed skill to do their research. And I have online courses too that, is helping a lot of students. And also, I can see that a lot of people have joined me, those who follow me on LinkedIn, Facebook. So thank you for also joining me here today. So I'm the author of a step-by-step guide to qualitative data coding. And this book has been very helpful to a lot of students. It was published in 2019. And so if you want to get access, so there are links there that you can use. I've already posted the link to this presentation in the chat box, so you can get access to this presentation and can click on it. If you are an instructor who is teaching mixed method, any qualitative methodology or research method, you can get access to my book for free. I'm also a co-author of the theoretical framework in phenomenological research. We did this book because we realized that a lot of students are using phenomenological approach, but they lack the foundational knowledge, right? So we try as much as possible to explain all the foundational information about phenomenology and trying to see how students can translate that information into doing their research. So this book will be very helpful for you if you are doing a phenomenological study. So this is the outline. So in this presentation, I'm going to briefly talk to you about qualitative analysis. And then I'm going to talk about a program evaluation involvement and constraint as a methodology aspect, right? And also, I'm going to talk about ensuring credibility and also usability. As John said, if you have any questions, you can type your question in, or you can wait when I finish. You can ask your question by, unmuting yourself and ask any question, and I'll be happy to address them for you. So what is qualitative analysis? So qualitative analysis, I see it as like data reduction, right? You have collected information from participants, you talk to them, they provided you a lot of information, and you cannot just send that information to your audience. You have to reduce the data. And you can also think about it as summary, right? You are summarizing what participants have given you and then presenting your information to your audience at the same time trying to address your research question that you have. And in terms of summarizing, you have to be systematic, right? Because you want people to believe what you found. You cannot just say that, oh, I went through my document or the transcript, and these are the themes that I got, right? You want to really explain the process. How were you able to identify significant information from the data? How were you able to develop codes? Codes are just labels that you use to represent the significant information. How were you able to develop themes, right? Did you categorize the codes, right? How were you able to maybe develop a theory or a model to help you to address your research question? So it's all about being transparent. It's all about being systematic. It's all about knowing that the information that you are generating are doing two things. They are addressing the research question at the same time, representing the significant information that you have gathered from participants, right? So that's all about qualitative analysis. And if you want to know more, my book will be helpful. Or when you go online and go to YouTube and type my name, I have a lot of presentation on qualitative analysis, right? So as a methodology expert, I don't only provide consultation to clients about how they are doing their research. I also receive a lot of requests from people who are working on a program or people who are doing an evaluation, and they want me to help them in analyzing their evaluation data that they have collected when they were doing the evaluation, especially the qualitative data, right? So sometimes they ask me to come at the beginning of the program in terms of program evaluation at the beginning, where they are planning about, okay, what kind of questions that we have to address, what kind of design that we have to use in terms of collecting data, how do we collect data, how do we analyze, right? So sometimes I get opportunity to start with them, client, and then think about how the program will be evaluated, and then provide my feedback in terms of the way that we're going to collect data and analyze, right? So when they invite me at the beginning as a methodology expert, there's a little bit of high involvement in the process because I'm there, and I'll be able to provide them all the needed feedback concerning what kind of maybe questions that do they have to ask participants, what kind of research question, and how are we going to analyze the data. So because I'm also there, there's higher level of involvement as a methodology expert. But also there's a lower level of constraint, right? So in terms of time, because this time I can negotiate with them about, okay, this is the amount of time that we're going to collect data, this amount of time that maybe amount of money that we need for this evaluation, this is the kind of data that we need, right? So in terms of constraint, I have a lot of freedom if I'm part of the evaluation. But when you get into the middle, this is where the problem comes, right? I have less involvement in when it's getting to the middle and also getting to the end, where they have already collected the data. They have already, collected what they have to collect, and then they contact me and they say, okay, Philip, we have a data here. Will you be able to analyze, and let's see what we're going to find, right? I wasn't part of developing questions. I wasn't part of developing research questions that we have to, address and collect the right data, right? So when you reach that stage, the constraint is very high in terms of time. Sometimes they tell you that, okay, we have about 2 weeks to get the results. Can you work on this data and give us the results by 2 weeks? We are working with this amount of money. Is it within your the amount of money that you want based on the time that you're going to spend? Or we have all this data. We didn't interview participants. We did open-ended survey. So we have responses. Will you be able to make sense of it and give us the information? So you see that because I wasn't part at the beginning, right? There's a lot of constraint, right? maybe the data that they have has nothing to do with their research question. So you have to think about, okay, so how do you reconcile the data that they have and the research question that they have? This is about real world, right? In a textbook, they provide you information about systematic process about doing program evaluation. But when you go to the real world, where there's constraint concerning time, resources, and data, you have to be very innovative and try to make sure that you are meeting the needs of your client. At the same time, you are making sure that the information that you are working on, you provide a credible result, right? So it's a very challenging process when you at the latter part or at the latter part of the evaluation, and then they contact me, right? So and as you can see here, that the involvement is very small, right? I have sampled some of the projects that I was involved in. So as I'm doing presentation, I might be referring to some of the projects, right? So the first project that I will be talking about is the methodology and writing support evaluation project. So this is what I did when I was with the Chicago School of Professional Psychology. So I was the methodology expert, and we have a center called National Center for Academic and Dissertation Excellence, right? So this center, we provide methodology support, we provide writing support to students, right? So at the third year of the establishment of this center, we realized that we have to do an evaluation. Reflecting on looking at the data that we have collected, and also talking to students or getting information from students and also faculty, and trying to find out whether the services that we are providing are helping students, right? So in this one, I was part at the beginning of the program evaluation. So I was very involved. We met every week. We involved the stakeholders, especially our supervisor. And then because I was very involved at the beginning, the process was so smooth because we know the kind of evaluation questions that we are looking at. We know the kind of data that we are looking for, and we know how we're going to analyze our data, right? We were also not constrained by time. We used about a year to do it. We wasn't like we were not rushing. We took our time to do that. And if you want to know more about this project, I think at the PowerPoint, I think the last part of the PowerPoint slide, I have the information there. You can get access to the article that we wrote about this project. The second project is now going on. So is students support practical doctoral student practical residency program or project. So this one, so I'm working with a university where for the doctoral students, they are required to engage in residency program. So the residency is all about they have like a week or so, maybe 5 days, and the student meet and talk about their research, and then learn from each other, talk to faculty, and learn about how to analyze their data and present their findings. So they get some more of a practical way of doing research so that they get the needed skills for them to do their own research. So for this project, I was involved in when the projects have been approved, right? So after the project has been approved, they have the funding and everything. They asked me to be part of the project and helping them with the evaluation. So it's a continuous project now. We have collected our initial data. We're going to continue to collect data from participants and then analyze. So this is you can see that I wasn't part at the beginning because I wasn't part in developing a proposal, but after the program has been approved, they asked me to be part. So you see here that the involvement is not all that high, but it's better than the ones here. So I don't want to spend a lot of time here, but I just want you to know that for my involvement, I can divide it into 4 areas, right? I just want to talk about the last part. The last part is very interesting because this is a professor who, during the COVID time, most of her courses were changed from face-to-face to online. So she realized that she has to, do a little bit of, evaluation by finding out from students about the experience of online education, like online courses, the challenges that they face. And then after she has collected the data, she contacted me to see how she can make sense of the data. This one is so interesting because we decided that she is going to analyze the data by herself, but I'm going to coach her as she analyzes the data. So you see, my role is quite, it varies based on the issue or the level of where the program, the evaluation is, right? So this is just a brief information for you. So let's go to the credibility issues and other things. So credibility is all about the degree to which the findings can be trusted or trusted, right? So think about this way: how, as a qualitative researcher, there's some level of subjectivity when you are doing a qualitative study, right? Because you see yourself as an instrument, you are connected to the issue. So there's high probability that your background, your biases might influence what you are studying and how you are making sense of the data, right? But how do you ensure that the findings are credible, right? One way is to make sure that you are transparent in the process. You are explaining to your audience step by step how you generated a theme to how you develop the findings to address the research question that you have. So in evaluation, what you have to do is that as a methodology expert, you have to first, when somebody comes to you that, oh, I have a data, can you help me to make sense of it? First of all, you have to understand the program, right? It's very important to understand the program. What is the program all about? What do they want to achieve? Who were the beneficiaries of the program? Understanding the program will help you to better make sense of the data that they have given to you, right? And also knowing the interests and expectations of your stakeholders and explaining your data analysis strategy to the stakeholders, right? And also presenting the findings in a way that makes sense to them, right? So let's start with the first one. Whenever you are being presented or you have been asked to be part of an evaluation, the first thing that you have to know is to understand the program, right? We call it, having knowledge about the program theory. And one of the ways of having the knowledge about program theory is to look at it as like a model, right? So one of the popular way of looking at it is like using logic model. So the logic model is all about looking at the program input, right? The process, output, outcome, and impact. If you are new to this logic model, I don't want to confuse you, but think about this way. So in every program, there are resources that have been put aside to help to carry out a program, right? And then you think about what are the program activities? That's a process, right? And then what is the outcome or the measurement of the program activities? That will be the output. And the outcome, you see the outcome as the benefit of the program to the beneficiaries of the program, right? And the impact is like the effect of the program or long-term effect of the program on the participants who were part of the program. So you have to understand what is the issue that maybe they are developing a program to address, what are the resources, what are the activities, and what are the outcomes. Understanding this one will help you to make sense of the data that they have, right? Another thing that you have to think about is knowing the interest and expectation of your stakeholders. It's always important to not behave like, oh, I want to be very objective. I want to be like a judge, trying to make sure that I get the very quality finding, objective finding without any influence, right? Because at the end of the day, you want your stakeholders to use the findings. So you have to know their expectations, right? So so when they contact me and I first learn about their project, I want to know, what do they expect? What are their interests? What do they expect from the data? What do you want them to do? What do they want me to do for them, right? Sometimes they will ask a lot from you based on the time that they have given you, right? So you always have to think about negotiating with them and trying to say, okay, within the time and also the budget that you have, I think that I will be able to do this and that, and this one will be very useful. Or you can say that maybe they might have evaluation research question or evaluation question and has nothing to do with the data, right? So you have to be transparent and tell them, and honest, and tell them that based on the data that I have here, your research question, the data cannot address this research question, but we can make an adjustment to your evaluation question, and this data can be helpful. So negotiating with them, knowing their expectation is so important as a person who wants to help them, right? Who just came in, right, to make sense of the information that they are presenting to you. So you have to think about a target, right? What do they want you to achieve? You have to think about a task. What exactly do they want you to do? And you have to think about the time, how long. Knowing all these things, you have to also sometimes put it on paper and everybody have to sign. It's very important because you want to make sure that you and your stakeholders are on the same page concerning what they expect you to do, right? So, and I always use this one as an example. The one about this one, the minority campus experience. So I was part of a project where the institution want to know the experience of minorities, right? They have received reports that minorities are not having a good experience, right? So they want to really do a research and find out what is really going on, right? So they did focus groups and asking them questions about the experience and whether they feel belong, whether they can identify themselves with their professors, right? So I was invited to be part of this project, getting to the latter part of data collection. So they have already almost collected their data. So I don't have much influence about, oh, you have to change this, you have to do one-on-one interview, right? So when I was contacted, and the first thing I wanted to find out, what is the project all about, right? And then, they responded, they gave me all the information about the project. And I asked them, okay, so what is your evaluation question? Oh, we didn't have any evaluation question, but we wanted to know the experience of minorities and how they feel belong and the challenges that they are facing, so that we can come up with a project or a program to help them to feel belong there. Okay, so I said, okay, based on this objective or the purpose, I think we can look at these three questions, right? So I emailed them the questions that evaluation question that we can use, right? And they said, oh, that's okay. They gave me 1 month to analyze the data, and I gave them the information in terms of the results. And then they were very satisfied. And then, they presented that information to the board of directors or board of governors or something like that in the institution. And then they came up with a program to help address the issue. So it's all about knowing their expectation, knowing more about what they expect, right? Sometimes even their evaluation question may have nothing, or it's not really consistent with what they really want to find out. So that's why you have to really talk to them and get more information. Another thing that you have to think about is, explaining the data analysis strategies, right? Sometimes they might not be interested, right, in knowing about the detail about how the data, the coding strategy that you're going to use, how are you going to categorize your data, how are you going to develop themes. they might not be interested in that, right? So you always have to, it gets back to their interest and expectation. You don't have to bombard them with all the details if they don't want it, right? But you have to present information in such a way that they trust your findings, and there's a higher probability for them to use your find, right? So the same example that I gave you, I did not, so after I've analyzed and given them the findings, I didn't go into detail the coding strategies and the categorization strategy that I use, right? But I gave them a list of code that I developed and how I categorize the code into themes, and then examples of what participants said to support the themes, right? So always want to find out what do they expect from you? How do they want the data or the find to look like, right? Some people are so busy, they don't want a long, about 30-page of your findings. Maybe they want 2 pages of their findings. Always have to really communicate with them so that you meet their expectation. So let's go to the usability, right? So usability is all about the degree to which the findings can be easily used or applied by stakeholders. So how do you ensure usability? There are 3 things. You have to, if you can involve them in the data collection or data analysis process, that would be awesome if they are available. If you can help them to make sense of the findings, that would be awesome. So when you present the findings to them, you can also, or do you want us to meet and so that we can go through so that you can make sense of the findings so that I can explain any question that you have? Some people will say, oh, I'm okay, everything is clear, right? So it's all about what their expectations or their needs are. Honestly, showing them how the findings could be used is so important. So the first one is involving them, right? So how do you involve them? So you have to really identify potential users of the findings. Who are going to use the findings? That's what you have to ask yourself, right? The good thing about my case is that most of the time, those who contact me are those people who are likely to use the findings, right? So I already know those people you're going to use the findings, so it's not going to be very difficult, right? And so now that you know who is going to use the findings, you will have to engage them in the data analysis process, right? So the engagement is not bombarding them, forcing them to be part of the data analysis process. It's all about, I always say that you have to match their expectation, right? So if you think that you are so interested in knowing the data analysis process, that it will be awesome. One example is the last example I gave you here, where the professor really want to know, she is not quite, she doesn't have a lot of skills in analyzing qualitative data. So she said that, oh, this is a great opportunity for me to know how to analyze qualitative data. So I don't want you to do it for me. Let's go through using NVivo. NVivo is a software, qualitative software that you can use to analyze your data. So let's book dates, and then we go through slowly how to upload your findings, how to upload the transcript into the system, how to identify significant information, how to do the coding. I think if I do that, I'll be able to get the needed skills so that next time I can do it myself, right? So you see, based on the expectation on the needs, you match that, right? So I'm not going to say that, oh, no, I will do it for you, right? But what I'm going to say that, oh, if you want me to show you, it will take this amount of time. And since it's taking this amount of time, there's the cost involved, right? So it's all about negotiating. It's all about meeting their needs, right? So everybody or every stakeholder may have their specific needs, right? Don't assume that, okay, these are the steps I have to do as an evaluator or as as a methodology expert, this is what I have to do. You always have to know their needs and match the things that you're going to do based on their needs, right? So you engage them, you have to show them how you analyze your data. Showing them how you analyze your data is very good because it increases the credibility, right? So that they will not think that you just made the themes up, right? You want to show them step by step, right, about how you did it. Also helping them to make sense of the data, right? You know, you can show them how you analyze, you can explain to them the main findings, and then find out, what do you think about these themes? Or what do you think about these findings? How is it really going to help you to, you know, implement or make sense of the program, right? So having a conversation with them so that they can make sense of the data will be awesome, right? And last step that you can think about is showing how the findings could be used, right? How do you show them? By having a discussion concerning the implications, right? What are the lessons that we can learn from these findings, right? Some of them, based on the findings, they already know the lessons, so you don't want to engage them about that. So you always have to know their needs, right? Some of them you have to focus on the action plan. So based on these findings, what are the actions that we can take, right, to help maybe improve the program or to help provides more support to participants or something like that? That would be awesome. Another tool that I don't know whether you have heard of this tool, ChatGPT, right? So it's an AI tool that when you ask the system questions, right, the system can give you not a perfect answer, but it gives you very good information that you can work on, right? So I did a short video on how to develop action plan, right? So based on your findings, so you can use the software, AI software, where you tell the AI that, okay, assuming that you are a qualitative researcher, and then you analyze your data, you came up with these themes. Based on this theme, can you give me action plan, right? And the video, and I did a video on that, how to, you know, ask the system. And then the action plan was very good, right? It's information that you can start with and work with, right? So this is a free tool that you can get access to. So that can help you to develop action plan and then work on that. It's not, as I said, it's not perfect, but it's a way of getting ideas so that you'll be able to develop very good action plan. So this is what I have for you in case you want to get access to the article that I'm talking about my first project that we published. This is the information where you'll be able to get. So this is what I have for you. I'm hoping that I have some questions that I will be able to address and clarify stuff. So thank you.
Hi, Dr. Adu. This is Lori Wingate here in the About Cafe room at WMU.
Hi,
I'm
Lori.
gonna invite folks who are online to come off mute and ask their questions or put them in the chat. And while they do that, I have a question for you.
Yes.
So you gave the example in talking about engaging your clients in data analysis. You gave the example of the professor who really wanted you to coach her, and so she could learn how to do it. And I assume at the other end, there's people who we don't really want to get involved, just tell us what you did. But could you give an example of something in between where you want to engage your client in data analysis? You're not going to turn it over to them. Yeah, just an example of something in between those extremes. Yes.
So one is the first project where the first project is so interesting because it's like we are internal evaluators. So we were two people involved. I was the qualitative methodology expert, and then my colleague was a quantitative methodology expert. So in this case, what we did was when we got our data and analyzed, when we go to this, you know, I think every week we had a meeting concerning the center. So one of those days we presented that information to the whole the stuff about the data and how we analyze and how we make sense of the data, and then we got feedback. We directly involve our supervisor because our supervisor was, continuously was part of the process in terms of the beginning, the planning of the evaluation and also the data analysis. We show them, for my part, I show them how to use the NVivo to upload all the information into NVivo and develop themes, codes, and categorize the codes and have the themes to help to address the research questions. So we directly involve our supervisor, and I think that really helped because of that, she was able to help us come up with new policies to help to improve the service that we provide to students. So that's the one that we really involve them because you can see here that there was limited in terms of constraint time-wise. We weren't bound with a specific time, so we have enough time to do all these things. And then we have budget, and we have, we collected the data, so it was very useful for the analysis. For the other ones in the middle, this one is a continuous process, right? We haven't finished yet. I'm waiting for them to send me the qualitative data for me to analyze, and we normally meet continuously to discuss the process. So I always think about this way: would a person be interested in knowing the detail about the analysis, right? And also, would time give it, do I have enough time to do that, right? Let's say the person has given me about a week to analyze the data. I have to think about the time that I have. I have to think about the budget involved. I have to think about the kind of data. And all these factors should be taken into consideration and see the level of involvement. So it all depends on where I see myself, right? And I think that's really informed the way that I involve them in terms of data analysis. Right.
We do have a few questions in the chat. If you can, are you able to see those, Dr. Adu? Because I can read them.
Yeah, if you can read them for me, that would be
Sure.
awesome.
Sure. So Margaret asks, how can you best engage your client to appreciate your findings in a case where they disagree with the findings, such as in a case of project evaluation?
In case they disagree, I think that you always want to, find out why they disagree, right? So in this case, you first have to show them how you analyze your data, right? Show them the process. And I think when it comes to qualitative analysis, we have many ways of analyzing the data. Some people can adopt the theoretical granite theory approach in terms of initial coding, focus coding, and other things. Some people use narrative coding to do that. So there might be disagreement. First of all, you have to let them know or show them how you analyze your data, and then find out from them what they disagree in terms of the process, right? And then you can also give them alternative, right? So maybe they have a suggestion that, okay, you have to do it in a different way. And you can also try in that different way and see the results and compare and see what, the similarities and the differences, right? So they're always going to be disagreement. I think the disagreement will be less if you engage them at the beginning, finding out at the beginning, what do they expect from you, right? And showing them what you're going to do, right? Showing them that, okay, I'm going to use this software and this is how I'm going to do it. And this is how the results going to look like. What do you think about it? So initial conversation is very important. But if you don't do the initial conversation and you have different expectation, and this is where the results might not meet the expectation because you didn't have much conversation concerning what they expect from you. Sometimes we assume that the evaluation questions are okay, and then we just go ahead. You have the evaluation questions, you have your data, you just analyze and give it to them, right? But you have to have a conversation, because sometimes the question may not be this consistent with what they really expect from you or what they really expect from the data. So having a negotiation with them or conversation with them at the beginning will reduce the disagreement, right? But when it's a disagreement, you just have to meet them and have a discussion, right? This is how I did it. And what do they think? What are their suggestions? And I think that would be awesome if you do that, right?
Okay, before we take more questions from the chat, I think Ernest has his hand up. Ernest, do you want to come off mute and ask your question?
Yes, thank you very much. Dr. Adu, that's a wonderful presentation. I have a quick one. You know, I love the fact that you're a methodologist, and then bringing in those expertise in evaluation is really important. You know, in your submissions, you were talking of, sometimes you talk of research, sometimes you shift into evaluation and stuff, which is pretty good. But I think we need to draw the line between the two: social science research and evaluation. Okay. So in evaluation, although we collect data, we analyze data, one important thing is that we collect the data based on certain criteria, and then we compare these criteria with values. Values are important in evaluation. Values are benchmark, norms, and stuff, or standards, and then we draw evaluation conclusion, which is very critical from social science research. So these things must be clear so that those who are more into research will know the difference between the two disciplines. Well, that said, in your submission about credibility, it's very important, because sometimes I do ask myself that the evaluator must always be conscious of everything that is happening. And you've made mention of all those, which is important. And all these things will curb some of these biases or subjectivity that you've spoken about. So this is the question: do values for an object, or whether a project, whether a policy, whether a program evaluation, do values from these objects, either in the sense of merit or in the sense of worth, remain constant in evaluation, or they keep changing, either merit or worth changes from time to time or place to place in evaluation? Because this is a good, important question, because it's all involves about credibility in what you are talking. I don't know whether my question is clear to you, Dr.
Yes, so maybe let me try to answer and see whether I really. So you are talking about values. So are you talking about the values that the evaluator has in terms of being honest and being transparent? Is that kind of values that you are thinking about, or the values of the project?
So it's in two ways. So value, sometimes it's kind of people confuse values as that. So value, okay, I'll go into that dimension of values in terms of, I mean, what you are bringing in the program. There's another dimension of value whereby maybe the criteria can, merit and merit are determinants, value determinants in evaluation, okay? And there's also value, which is the norms, the main value, that the benchmark that we compare these criteria, dimensions of worth and values are criteria in evaluation. Okay, so we compare these criteria with norms and benchmarks to make our conclusion. Okay, so value can be the criteria, or value can be the benchmark or norm. So you can come from these angles. Okay. Yeah. So I just want to know whether these values that we apply in evaluating the object, the evaluant, or the program, policy or program, do these values change, in the sense of merit and what? Do they change with time, or from place to place, or they remain constant?
It could change based on I think it can change, but I think that one thing that I've realized is that you always have to be flexible in the process in terms of evaluation. You may, when you start evaluation, you have your benchmarks, right? And that is, should be constant, right? So that when you do the evaluation and you find a result, you can compare the result to those values that you already have, right? But the values could change maybe after you have done the evaluation, and then maybe you want to re-examine the program again, right? And maybe you will realize that, oh, I think that the benchmark that I have here, the values is too high for it to be achieved. the program is too complex, or the problem that the participants are having is so complex that the benchmark that we think that, you know, this program can achieve is too high. So it's all about going back and reflecting upon it, but it will be after you have, you know, analyzed your data, having your findings, and then after you have compared your findings with the benchmark, and then you can go back and say that maybe I think we may have to make a little adjustment to the values. But, you know, the values may be constant during the time when you have your data and you're analyzing, but it might change after you have your findings, and then you are making decisions based on the findings, right? As you make decisions, you can make decisions about the resources again. You can make decisions about the program activities. You can make decisions about who will benefit concerning the program, and you can make decisions about the values or the benchmark, right? So it's all about making sure that there is a consistency across the program component, right? When you look at the logic model, right? The input, output activities, and then the outcome and other things. So it can change, but most of the time it's based on the results, right? And what you want to do with the result in terms of whether you want to make an adjustment to the program and also the outcome.
All right, thank you.
And also thank you so much for differentiating between the evaluation and doing actual research.
Yeah.
So, and I think that some students, they confuse that program evaluation from doing the actual research. So I really appreciate you making the distinction, right?
No problem. No.
I always want to simplify it by saying that, so research, most of the time, you identify a problem in the literature, right? Which can be called research problem or a gap in the literature. And based on a gap, you can, you know, develop the purpose of the study, think about a research question, and then, you know, think about how you're going to collect the data. Program evaluation is all about there should be an existence of a program. Sometimes the program might not be existing. Maybe you have to do needs assessment, right? Assess the needs of the potential beneficiaries, and based on that, you develop a program and implement, right? So it's more, program evaluation is something, it evolves around a specific program. Doing research evolves around a specific problem that you have identified in the literature. It's also different from action research, although sometimes there's similarities between action research and also program evaluation. So I really appreciate you, you know, making that distinction.
All right, so we don't have a lot of time, so I think we can take one more question from the chat, and just being aware that we only have a couple more minutes. This is from Fanny. How do you recommend to mitigate time constraints when analyzing qualitative data with the expectation of meeting the client's datelines and balancing, accomplishing credibility and transparency of the findings? So basically, she's asking how to expedite the qualitative analysis in such a case. Do you have any strategies to recommend?
I think that, the strategy is, you have to let them know that the time that you are being given, this is what they're going to get, right? Imagine that they contact you and they say that you have 2 days to analyze all this huge amount of data and then bring the information to us, right? Sometimes it will be humanly impossible for you to, analyze this huge amount of data. So it's all about letting them know. You don't want to make them feel like you can do it and then the results doesn't meet their expectation, right? Let them know that based on the 2 days that you are giving me and the time that I have, what I can do about this data is that maybe I can do automatic coding, right? Using a software. And then based on the automatic coding, we can get initial findings. And then if you want more, we can dig into that. Always let them know your expectation, right? And work with them so that you will not feel overwhelmed, because you don't want to take something where you will burn out, right? They expect a lot from you, especially if the expectations are not clear, right? And then you take this one and then you don't do a great job as they expect. And then you get a bad review and people might not come to you anymore, right? So it's all about letting them know about the time and what they will get from it. And I think that will be very good if you let them know at the beginning.
Thank you very much, Dr. Edu, and thank you all for joining us today. Be sure to register for the next eval cafe, where we'll be joined by Brice Christie. She's currently working as the technical assistant evaluation and assessment manager at the University of Michigan. She'll be speaking about considering your professional ethics and values in your data work. So they'll be talking more about values. Those who would like to know more about values can join us next week, Wednesday. Thank you all for joining. Have a nice day.
Thank you too. Bye,
Thank you.
everyone.
Bye.
Bye.
Okay.